now it's time for the music report, and this week's landmark case regarding the copyright rights of Led Zeppelin's Stairway to Heaven. Your commentary, you know what's coming. You know the most perfect pundit in America to weigh in on this. You love him. He's all the way from Laguna Beach. Say hello to the avian op-ed columnist in the paper machete. It's Chad the Bird!
What up, Gringo? Okay, pick up your pencils and take notes. Pick your fights, people. That's one of the big damn commandments of victory. Pick your fights. Two old dudes screaming at each other at the liquor store? You're not going to get involved with their Cold War squabblings. That's not your time. You're all about progress. Buy your chips and bail. Smartphone screamer on the bus? Turn up your music, because they're probably just hangry or something. Godzilla is attacking the city? Unless you're Voltron, you're not taking home the belt. But don't freak out. Everybody knows Godzilla is attacking. You can't not know Godzilla is attacking. Your panic is not helping. You're just being an asshole. Victory depends on you sizing up the situation. And it's not because you run the risk of getting your ass kicked and you want to be prepped. There's always someone can kick your ass. Fight or flight is in your circuitry. But if it is victory you seek, pick your fights. Don't be an asshole. And don't fuck with Led Zeppelin. First of all, we all know Led Zeppelin was formed when an asteroid made love to the last celestial titan, and the resulting comet struck the planet Earth in the Caspian Sea, and from the waters were born 4 wizards blessed with the power of light. Everybody knows it's common knowledge. So immediately the deck is stacked against you should you come for those blessed by the gods of rock. What most people don't know is that they were a foursome created in London after Jim McCarthy and Keith Reef of the Yardbirds authorized then Yardbirds guitarist Jimmy Page and bassist Chris Dreja to create the new Yardbirds, after the band decided to wind down after the departure of lead singer Jeff Beck. Okay, you with me so far? Seriously. Page wanted to create a supergroup with Jeff Beck because the Falcon does not hunt alone. But Beck went off to form the Jeff Beck group, so Page brought in the lead singer of Band of Joy and Hobbs Tweedle, Robert Plant, who brought along former Band of Joy drummer John Bonham. One can assume they all met on a giant mushroom to decide the fate of the realm. And then John Paul Jones joined on bass after sending an inquiry for the vacant position left when Chris Dreja jumped ship to become a photographer. One can assume the message came by Raven. The band dropped the name New Yardbirds after Chris Dreja hit Page with a cease and desist order, stating that the band could only be called the New Yardbirds for Scandinavian concerts only. One can assume, 'cause trolls. The name Led Zeppelin came from a joke made by The Who's John Entwistle and Keith Moon, who said that a supergroup with Jeff Beck and Jimmy Page would go down like a lead balloon. They dropped the A in lead because they thought people would say lead because English, and Page liked Zeppelin over balloons because Zeppelins were, quote, the perfect combination of heavy and light combustibility and grace. And they were signed to Atlantic in 1968 for $143,000, which was the biggest deal of its time for the new band at the time. 2 years later, across the pond, 2 years earlier, that part's important, erase that and start over. 2 years earlier, across the pond, an LA band called the Red Roosters, featuring Randy California, Mark Andes, and Jay Ferguson, took on Ray California's stepdad, Ed Cassidy, and John Locke, and they evolved into the band called Spirit Rebellion, later shortened to just Spirit. Randy California was the former guitarist for Jimmy James and the Blue Flames, fronted by Jimmy James, whom you know as Jimi Hendrix. And Spirit's first album, Spirit, was produced by their roommate, Barry Hansen, whom you know as Dr. Demento. See, rock in the 60s was like a Marvel movie. So many heroes, so many adventures, and they were all mutants and aliens. The first album was pretty decent success, 31 on the Billboard 200, featured the hit single Fresh Garbage and the all-instrumental song Taurus, which is important, take notes. The next album, The Family That Plays Together, featured the song I Got a Line on You, which you know from the trailers for every single Diane Keaton, Jack Nicholson, and Robert De Niro coming of middle age, what the hell is an iPhone movie made after 2004, ask your dad, keep up. 1968, Spirit plays Denver with support band Led Zeppelin, and because of this legendary touring experience, which was Zeppelin's first American tour, Zeppelin would incorporate the Spirit song Fresh Garbage into their closing medley in 1969. Jimmy Page also got into the theremin that made him famous in songs like Whole Lotta Love after hearing Randy California play one attached to his guitar. Now, this is all super important because, as you know, because you've been taking notes, Zeppelin toured with Spirit during their formative years, learning how to be a rock band and secretly the dark arts and spellcasting, which is basically common knowledge, but we must keep it secret, keep it safe. So, it should come as no surprise to anyone that in 1971, after Zeppelin released a little ditty called Stairway to Heaven, that people noticed and complained right off the bat that it sounded an awful lot like the opening chords of Taurus by Spirit. So much so that even 25 years later, right after his death, Randy California wrote, quote, "People always ask me why Stairway to Heaven sounds exactly like Taurus, which was released 2 years earlier. I know Led Zeppelin also played Fresh Garbage in their live set. They opened for us on their first American tour. So much, that 48 years after its release, 2014, the estate of Randy California sued Led Zeppelin for co-writing credit for that very song. And if you listen to them side by side, it's pretty close. Close enough to make you squint your eyes like you heard a weird fart or a suspicious fact by a friend on Facebook, and you're all like, since when did you give a shit about British politics, Stephanie? Last week all you could talk about was Finding Dory. Did someone say yellis?
A little bit.
Okay. I'm glad that we got that out. A liquid J, as they call it. Anyway, we'll take that in. We'll talk about that later. Where was I? Oh, yeah. Finding Dory. So anyway. And why wouldn't a song like Stairway to Heaven sound a little bit like Taurus? Have you ever been at a party and somebody starts humming Come On Eileen and then you're going to hear it for the next month? Music is infectious. A good melody gets into your brain and lays eggs in it. That's why they call it an earworm. And hey, you can't become a 4-time Grammy Hall of Fame winning band like Led Zeppelin without knowing a good tune when you hear it, even when it's just close to becoming the tune that would become the song that you would get sued for 40 plus years later down the line. Plagiarism is taking a full song and putting your name on it. Robin Thicke, nobody likes you, also you're sexist. Taking a cue from a riff is just something artists do. We would not have All By Myself without the Adagio Sostendo of Rachmaninoff's Piano Concerto No. 2 in C minor, Opus 18. If you're not done taking notes, you're not done taking notes. We wouldn't have Shakira's Hips Don't Lie without Jerry Rivera's Amores Como Nuestro, and we would not have the opening of Kill Bill Volume 2 without Fernando Baldi's Comin' At Ya. All of this is true. Flip the page over. April 2016, 50 years after the song was released, Zeppelin and California District Judge Gary Clouser ruled that Page and Plant would stand trial for copyright infringement, and Zeppelin agreed, and they did it in June of 2016, whereon, June 15th, Jimmy Page spent an hour on the witness stand defending his process. And one can assume, just generally looking perplexed, as he's like 72, lived through the 70s, and probably has no idea what anybody was talking about. And on June 23rd, after playing the song side by side for the jury, it was decided unanimously that the song Taurus was similar but intrinsically different, that's a direct quote, from the song that Rolling Stone named number 31 on the greatest songs of all time, Guitar World's number 1 greatest guitar solo of all time, logged an estimated 2,874,000 radio plays, and holds the record for biggest selling piece of sheet music in rock history. I'll say that one more time. Biggest selling piece of sheet music in rock history at 15,000 copies a year. Now, granted, both bands never had a number 1 hit. Granted, both bands broke up after a significant member died. But only one went on to be awarded a Kennedy Center Honor, a Music Maker Award, an Ivor Novello Award, and inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, UK Music Hall of Fame, and Mojo Hall of Fame 100. While the other is famous because a super drunk Neil Young interrupted their performance of Like a Rolling Stone at their reunion concert in '79. Spirit may have written a song called Taurus, but Zeppelin wrote a song called Stairway to Heaven. Victory belongs to those who pick their fights. Pencils down.
Chad.